Welcome. In this video, we'll explain vintage phaser, why it's vintage, and what can it do in the right hands. That means your hands. Vintage phaser is a phaser inspired by and modeled after the Electro-Harmonix's small stone phase shifter, as used by Jean-Michel Jarre, most famously on Oxygène. Originally designed as a guitar pedal, this 1970s phaser's claim to fame is however more associated with synth sounds going through it. Okay, but why is it called a phaser? Disappointing fact, it has nothing to do with Star Trek. Phasing is like the sound you'll hear if a jet plane flies over you. It sounds like a continuous fading in and out of some frequencies. That is the result of phase cancellation. In a plugin, this happens when you mix a copy of a sound with itself, but very slightly delayed at certain frequencies. This is what's called a phase shift. If you move the delay timing slowly, you get a phaser. Traditionally, phasers modulate between two phase states set at the minimum and maximum frequency to recreate the phasing effect. You can set these frequencies with these two sliders. However, when you activate the manual switch, the minimum and maximum sliders are replaced with a single frequency slider that allows to manually adjust and automate the phaser frequency. And by manual we mean you should automate it. Engage over sampling with the HQ button to improve audio quality, meaning you want a less vintage phaser. Turn up the feedback to increase the difference between the dry and wet signal, resulting in a more pronounced frequency response. If you would like to know more about feedback paths, check out the video card on screen right now for the delays section of our Mixing Basics series. Change LFO speed with this slider here. When unsynchronized, it will respond in Hertz. For a time-synchronized LFO, click here and the LFO will now synchronize to steps. There are actually two LFOs used in the phaser, one for left and one for right. The left-right phase parameter will change the phase between them. Greater dephasing equals greater stereo effect. When the LFOs are synchronized, you can offset the phase of both LFOs with this parameter. You can switch the LFOs to be either triangle or sine-shaped, and modify the LFO shape with the tension parameter to simulate degraded electronics or a sagging battery. Turn the built-in delay section on here. The mix knob is self-explanatory. The feedback knob is for the delay only. This does not affect the phaser feedback. Adjust your delay time here. Click Tempo Sync to set delay times in steps rather than milliseconds. The Keep Pitch button should be familiar. This maintains pitch as delay is modulated. You can turn the stereo knob to the left to delay the left channel, or turn it to the right to delay the right channel. High and low pass the delay's feedback path here. Using a delay with pad sounds playing sustained chords plus phasing is a great way to create a wide and stereo sound from something simple, as we showed with our JMJ example at the beginning. Click the gear icon on the top of the UI to open extra controls. Alternatively, you can drag down on the lower edge. Color gain and color frequency decide the gain and frequency of an extra low shelf on the phased signal. You can high pass the phaser input and feedback here. Rate frequency 1 is the frequency when the speed slider is at minimum with tempo sync off, and rate frequency 2 decides the maximum possible LFO frequency. The higher the LFO scale value, the smaller the LFO's output amplitude gets as its speed increases. When this is set to 0, no scaling of the LFO's output amplitude happens. Add a negative offset to the phaser frequency as you increase LFO speed by using the LFO pull knob. This control can keep the phaser outside the harsh 5 kHz range when using very fast LFOs. The noise knob can add modeled noise to the output signal. With the noise gate button, you can make sure the noise is only added when there is actual audio coming into the plugin. Force the input signal to mono with this switch. Usually, we wouldn't talk about the mix slider, but with phasers, the mix situation is a little more complicated. Since we are adding a copy with shifted phasers to the dry signal, the effect is actually most pronounced when the mix slider is 50%. 100% is the phase shifted copy and 0% is the dry audio. And that's all you need to know about Vintage Phaser to get started using it in your own productions. Don't forget to check out the video info for additional links and the demo projects we made for this video. Happy music making!